makes some sense of it all, but I can see it makes no sense at all. Is it cool to go to sleep on the floor? 'Cause I don't think that I can take anymore. Clowns to the left of me, jokers to the right. Here I am, stuck in the middle with you.
Good morning, everyone. Lots going on as usual. Today is, what day is it today? Tuesday, January 20th, 2026. And woke land acknowledgements are a start to City Hall, including some recognition about African recognition now. All of these extra things are being done for demoralization purposes and to take us away from actually solving problems, I think. So I'll show you the example. I don't think we're actually going to watch it because if you've seen one land acknowledgement, you've seen too many. So just take my word for it. It's terrible. But I've got the video if you want to watch it yourself. Trump is amping up the rhetoric on Greenland to match the EU's opposition. The EU is sending in troops to Greenland. They didn't protect their own borders, but Greenland's borders, very, very important to protect. Thank you very much. They definitely need to protect them from that evil guy, Trump. I mean, our ally and friend, Trump, right? So unbelievable stuff going on there. Will there be a conflict? Russia thinks so. Lavrov is on record. I've got a video of him talking about that. Davos is on. Chrystia Freeland's there. Mark Carney's there. There are a ton of people there, and they are there to make backroom deals. They're there to plot the future of the world without consulting us. This is where they go while in between elections, right? And these people are elected, but again, I think our system's rigged. So elected doesn't really mean much these days, especially if they're going to kowtow at Davos. Now, I said I didn't like Keir Starmer going to Davos, but somebody pointed out Trump's going to Davos. And I said, oh yeah, good point. But I think Trump's going to tell them, last time he was there, he basically told them, my way or the highway, like you guys are ruining your own countries. What are you doing? I think this time it might be just as fiery. So that's going to be interesting. Trump is I think he's one of the early speakers. It's the biggest contingent the USA has ever brought to Davos. So they're there with a big presence and to send a message. So we'll see what that message is, I'm sure. Australia passes the hate speech laws. Shocking. I'm shocked. New government, same old ministers. And with the Emergencies Act being ruled by 2 Canadian courts as illegal, is anybody going to be held accountable? Is anybody even going to lose their job? Ministers, same ministers now as then, they all get to just keep their job like nothing happened, like they didn't break the law? Weird. That's super duper weird, right? Ireland and digital ID, so they're moving forward with that. So there's lots to get to. Let's get to it. First, I'm going to start with grab bag of governance. Again, I'm leaving Greenland for later, but there's massive news with Greenland. Trump's re-truthing all sorts of memes about Canada already being like, we're so insignificant, he's not even negotiating with us anymore. We'll just become part of the United States when he gets Greenland. That's kind of like video game rules apply. Like, oh yeah, no, sorry, I took that, right? And you guys are involved here, so that's that. And you don't have a say anymore. Sorry, Guam, Canada. So there's lots later in the show, but the beginning of the show is great too. Anyway, here's Doug Ford, and he's talking about Mark Carney being a complete idiot, selling out to China and saying, do you think that Mr. Trump is going to want Chinese spy vehicles driving in from across the border in Canada? Not to mention what this is going to do to Ontario's auto sector. Like, give me a break, Mark Carney. And Doug Ford is not happy. So here we go.
Not too sure if President Trump wants Chinese spy vehicles coming across the border, but I'm betting the answer is no. You know, when you get on your cell phone, it's the Chinese that are going to be listening to your, and I'm not making this stuff up, they're going to be listening to your telephone conversation. I find it ironic that the Prime Minister is using a burner phone and all his staff over in China, but we're making a deal, it's Huawei 2.0, to come back into Canada, and we get nothing but potential job losses in our factories right across the board. Too sure if President
nothing but job losses in our factories right across the board, he says. Maybe, and that sounds quite dire, really. I hope that's not accurate. Here's End Wokeness, and again, the descent into Canadian madness, or the Canadian descent into madness, is more about all of these policies by our own government that seem to be wasting our tax dollars, working against the citizen, working against the country, hamstringing our ability to sell our natural resources, our riches, hamstringing our ability to make a deal with our biggest trading partner. And people are looking around and we're being told Qatar is the most important deal we could make. Security and China. Say those two words again, together, faster, right? And it's like, that doesn't make any sense. We've been told one thing for my whole life, and now that's being flipped. In communist China, please come in, have a seat. We'd love to hear about this pyramid scheme you've got going on. Like, are you joking me? And so it seems crazy, and I'm just highlighting highlights of the madness, right? And again, I don't want to show this because it's just a land acknowledgement, and these people are lunatics, and I don't want to give them airtime on this, but end wokeness. So we're being noticed around the world for our stupidity and wokeness, and that's not great, right? So Toronto City Council is a big city council. It's a capital of Ontario, and wokeness says Toronto City Council meetings begin with a land acknowledgement that Canada was stolen and honors African ancestry. And it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. We make clowns of ourselves when we do stuff like this. Holly Doan is reporting thousands of acres of dead pine left standing in Jasper were key contributing factors to the disastrous 2024 blaze that burned a third of the town, according to Canadian Forest Services. And that's not good. Bad policies led to the decimation of a historic Canadian town. And nobody seems to be held accountable. Nobody at all. Nobody seems to care, right? Gelbo's still doing his thing. It's wild and crazy. Here's some guys in Edmonton on horses with spears. Ryan says, it's safe to say that if me and my friends were riding horses around my city with spears in our hands, we would probably be arrested or at the very least issued a handful of fines. And nothing happens, right? And so that's weird. This is... what is Planet of the Apes reenactment? I don't know what's going on here. What is happening in Edmonton, you guys? If society collapses and we have to go back to horses, some people are going to be ready and some people are not going to be ready. And I feel like, what do they know, man? What's going on here? Horses? Did most people just have horses in Edmonton? Like, maybe this is just a cultural thing. In Ontario, we don't have horses just, ready to ride. Is that a thing in Edmonton, or is this outside of the norm? Blacklock says Minister Gary Anasangri yesterday, launches $742 million gun buyback that's already twice over the budget and opposed by 4 provinces. Federal polling warns of costly failure. There is a risk of non-compliance. Well, there are 4 provinces that are absolutely not going to comply. And I don't know why Ontario is even considering any of this. I don't think the OPP are on board for this, but maybe local police stations. But fundamentally, Sean is making the point that they don't know what guns you have. They can speculate, and I think the PAL gives them a right to come and search your property, regardless of a warrant. If you have a PAL, like a license for a firearm, then you agree to certain restrictions under that license, and that includes people can come and look and see what your guns look like and if there's any restricted guns. But they don't know what you have. And if they don't know what you have, they can't seize what they don't know, right? So if you lost it in a hunting thing, you were like, the canoe tipped over, man, and like, we got a couple of the guns back, but that was one that we didn't get back. It's in the bottom of the lake. You want it? Like, go get it. So where's the gun? It's gone. And it's never coming back. And like, I'm not even trying to be breaking the law. It just doesn't exist here anymore. It's in the lake. And that was 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago when this thing wasn't even restricted. We were just using it for hunting like regular people. Get off my property, right? So they don't know what you've got. And so even if they do have a registration, which again, some people may have some kind of registration depending on when they purchase the gun, but a lot of people who were giving feedback were saying that most of the time, nope, right? So very interesting. I think if it's different if you have an RPAL and you're buying a handgun, restricted gun license, and you're buying a handgun, I think that you have to register that gun, but guns bought under a PAL, I don't think are registered. Anyway, regardless, there was a lot of pushback on the gun registry years ago as well. Here's Melissa again talking about Doug Ford. This is more trade, but Doug Ford is slamming Mark Carney again about the EVs. And the trade is a big deal, and it's going to have an impact in Ontario, and that's concerning. Nobody wants that, because if you've got factories that are churning at a certain output, and that means X number of jobs. And then all of a sudden, because of bad trade, stupid policies, descent into madness, whatever it is, you lose some contracts, then less jobs, and then the economy is impacted, and so on and so forth. And so, yeah, it's bad news. And is the trade worthwhile? It doesn't seem like Doug Ford thinks so. And yet, Doug Ford was one of the biggest cheerleaders for Carney and his action-oriented bankerness. Denise is talking about Qatar, and she says that, is Qatar sending terrorists to Canada disguised as tourists? Why did the Canadian immigration minister suddenly change the rules for Qatar? So apparently previously Qatar needed to submit some extra things to do background checks and things like that. Qatar. And now they don't. And what's going on with that? And I meant to double check this and see if that was going on. But Denise does videos kind of like I do videos. So I just wanted to mention it. I'll just play like a minute of this, but here we go.
Did you know that our immigration minister in Canada just changed the rules for citizens coming from Qatar to Canada? There used to be some requirements, some visa requirements, maybe extra paperwork that they had to fill out so we could do a background check on them or keep track of them better. Now they just need to show up with a passport and they can do whatever they want in Canada. So I think that as it is, Qatar should be designated a terrorist state for all.
Well, we'll just leave that there. There's concerning funding that goes through Qatar, and I think that it is a concerning situation when we have governments changing the rules for travel, and we have violent people coming in, and the government seems to not care or actively encourage the violent people coming in. Concerned Canadian says, if this is validated, this is a clear violation of NATO's position. GM Forbes says that China says Mark Carney confirmed Canada's support for their one China policy, meaning that Taiwan doesn't exist. Taiwan is just a part of China. That, among other things, says Taiwan belongs to China. Funny, Carney's statement didn't mention that. So Carney's statement didn't mention that whole thing, but China says that that's what Carney said. And why would China lie? Mark Carney lies. All the time Mark Carney lies, which is weird because he gets caught for it often and never held accountable for it. So that's, it's strange. Darren is talking about the mega Chinese embassy in London. And this was a non-starter until it was happening. And then it was supposed to be like scurried. It was supposed to be ex-nayed. It was supposed to be gone. And then things happened, and now it's back and bigger than ever. So BBC is reporting government approves plan for Chinese mega embassy in London. The UK government has approved plans for a new Chinese super embassy in London, subject to conditions. The decision regarding the 20,000 square meter site at Royal Mint Court near the Tower of London has been delayed twice. Critics had warned of a potential threat to national security given the site's proximity to the City of London. This is a breaking story and will further bring you updates shortly. And Darren says this is an act of willful self-sabotage, allowing the Chinese to build a mega base for spying, putting at risk Britain's own security, but also the security of her allies using British infrastructure, whose side are Labour on. Same as the Canadian government, unfortunately, I fear. And I'd like to be wrong, but everybody's actions seem in lockstep together. Wild bohemian atmosphere, says CNN World, says Britain approves mega embassy in London despite national security fears. Whatever, right? And then you've got Winnie the Pooh looking over the House of Lords. CCP is watching you stop the mega embassy. And yeah, there's concerns, very, very valid concerns, if you ask me. Sam Cooper is responding to the Chinese mega embassy, and Cooper says Starmer and Carney cannot be trusted on PRC threats, on People's Republic of China threats. So I think that that's accurate. They seem compromised. And again, we have a government at every level that appears to not be able to make any decisions that will go against these obvious conflicts. Nobody's really going to call them out. They'll call them out a little bit, but only in ineffective ways. They won't actually do anything about it, just like nothing's actually been done to stop any of the any of the problems that have been cropping up since we started making terrible, terrible decisions and bad policies, implementing bad policies. Here's the Emergencies Act, which is bad policy come to bite people in the butt, but nothing's happened. Nobody's been arrested. Justin Trudeau was asked while at Davos, what do you think about the ruling? He dodged the question and was being very slimy car salesman-like with Ezra Levant. And I was like, there's nothing here. Like, he doesn't answer any questions like usual. But it's one of those things that is very frustrating because nobody's ever held accountable. And if it's illegal, it's illegal. But that just means that you or me could be arrested for it, not the people who are actually doing it and causing havoc in our countries with it. Keith says, last Friday, the Federal Court of Appeal released one of the most significant constitutional decisions in decades. The court confirmed that the federal government's February 14th, 2022 invocation of the Emergencies Act was unlawful, that statutory thresholds were not met, and that fundamental charter rights, including freedom of expression, protection against unreasonable search and seizure, were violated. It also held that freezing Canadians' bank accounts was unlawful and occurred without the constitutional safeguards required in a free and democratic society. This is now the second Canadian court to reach the same conclusion. The rule of law has spoken clearly, yet there has been no public acknowledged apology or explanation from the federal government. In a Western parliamentary democracy, findings of this gravity engaged the Constitutional Convention of Ministerial Responsibility. That principle holds when ministers authorize unlawful action or preside over serious failures of governance. They are expected to accept responsibility, including resignation from cabinet. 7 members of the current cabinet participated in the February 14th, 2022 decision. Respect for constitutional norms and democratic accountability now requires that they resign from cabinet. Dominic LeBlanc, Mel Joly, Francois-Philippe Champagne, Anita Anand, Patty Haydu, Mark Miller, Sean Fraser. Canada's democracy depends not only on the exercise of power, but on the willingness to relinquish it when the law has been breached. Sure, but they're not going to do anything. I haven't heard any rumors that any of these people are stepping down, nor that Mark Carney is shuffling the cabinet to fire these people or anything like that. And so in the absence of those rumors, I think that they're not going to do anything. And so that's telling. That tells you just what they think of the ruling. That tells you just what they think of the law. The law is a convenience to be used for their benefit and not to be, it doesn't sit above them, it sits below them. They're allowed to use it against you or me, or even maybe conservatives, but it doesn't touch the liberals. They're allowed to do whatever they want, right? They meant well, and that's all that matters. And it's not. And that shouldn't be acceptable. Tamara Litch says, how long are we? 17 minutes. Okay. Tamara Litch says, it's remarkable that the federal government has made no substantive statement about the January 16th Federal Court of Appeal ruling upholding the Mosley decision, and that neither the Conservative Party or the media has called out the government for its silence. Crickets. Crickets are all I hear from the Conservative Party of Canada. I can't believe that anybody takes them seriously as a party. Really. Tamara Litch is quoting Keith, and I've already read this, so I won't read it again, but she's agreeing with him and highlighting this and amplifying it using her platform. So that's something that is interesting. CBC Watcher is highlighting this from an opinion piece in the National Post. Feds spent millions defending Trudeau's Freedom Convoy crackdown and lost. What now, basically? And this quote makes it sound like there's some kind of justice, some kind of guardrail, something in place now. They can't do that again. And maybe they're right. Maybe they can't do that again, but they won't do that again. It's not going to look like that again. It's going to be something different because Doug Ford passed a bunch of laws that said you can't bring trucks down into certain areas and blah, 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 blah. So if people tried that again, it would not be successful for different reasons. And you can't catch lightning in a bottle in the same way twice. It just, well, maybe that's incorrect. I mean, you can catch lightning on a beach with lightning rods and things like that. Anyway, beside the point, you can't just manufacture something like that. It kind of grows by itself. And because of that, the circumstances will be different. And I don't think anybody will be reined in by a 4-year-old or a 4 years on decision confirming something that happened 2 years ago, that nothing happened then and nothing is going to happen now. And that's an unfortunate reality. Our system is rigged. Our justice system is compromised. And nobody has the political will or power to do anything about it in Canada at this point in time. And a lot of people have given up, and they're excited about the Greenland idea because maybe that means Trump will look at Canada next. And isn't that a weird place to be too, right? It's a very, very strange thing. We can't even solve our own problems. We'll wait until Trump will come and solve our problems for us. So strange. There's a lot that this government could be held accountable for, that this government in the public sphere, never mind in an official legal sphere, but there isn't a political party really doing a good job holding this government to account, and I don't know why. I feel like it would be very popular, but it's not. Anyway, here's CBC Watcher implying that something will be done, but I don't think anything ever will. This decision now stands as binding precedent. Binding precedent. Like our Constitution? Yeah, okay. It places real legal constraints on future governments and ensures that the Emergencies Act cannot be repurposed as a political convenience. It restores the Act to what Parliament intended, a narrow, exceptional tool, not a blunt instrument against dissent. The government spent millions defending the indefensible. It lost completely, and in doing so, it handed Canadians one of the most important civil liberty rulings in a generation. That's worth celebrating. No. The only thing I want for Christmas is handcuffs for criminals who orchestrated this madness. That's what I want. Nothing else matters. Being monetarily remunerated, none of that matters. It's just accountability. If our system is cracked, then the rest of it doesn't matter. If you take money, you're just being paid off by a system that's corrupt. So you're as corrupt as the system. So nah, thanks. I just want accountability and people in handcuffs. And I think they don't like that. I think they'd rather just buy people off. That's how things work now, you see. You just buy people off. That's how you get contracts, too. Buy people off. Keith Wilson says, the contrast last Friday was striking. On the same day, the Federal Court of Appeals condemned the federal government for unlawfully using emergency powers against law-abiding Canadians. That same government announced it will proceed with seizing the property of legal gun owners or criminalize them for noncompliance. This is not a democratic government. It is a pattern of authoritarian governance, and it explains why so many Albertans feel increasingly alienated from a federal government that no longer respects limits on its power or reflects our values. Yes. They invalidate their power as they do these things, as they embrace these authoritarian tendencies. They invalidate their power. I have no interest in complying with anything that these people are going to put forward. No interest at all. I'll protect myself legally as much as I can, but I have no interest in complying with them because I think what they're putting forward is wrong and more aligned with communist China than aligned with the tenets of what Canada was founded on, which is freedom, personal responsibility, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so I'm not going to do what they want, and they can't make me. And so it's the same thing as COVID. You can't make me comply. I will not comply. It's not going to happen. I'm not putting the mask on. I'm not moderating my speech, but I will protect myself legally. And I'm not going to listen to these lunatics because their hold on power seems tenuous. And it doesn't seem like it's as firm as it was a few years ago. And so at some point, they're going to get their comeuppance, and I hope I'm around to see it. Anyway, with that, we've got to say goodbye to the stream. There's still lots more show. We're going to talk about Greenland in a minute. It's going to be fun. And we're talking about food inflation in Canada as well, health, and much more. If you want the whole show, head over to CanadaPoly.com. If not, that's okay. I will be around tomorrow. And for everybody else, we will carry on right now as soon as I end the stream. Done. And here's Holly Doan. She says, Public Health Agency confirms effective April 1st, it will directly manage the national program